Hello. Unfortunately, I couldn't upload a podcast last week since I have a weekly plan of uploading the podcasts for those people who are trying to optimize sales and marketing as their career option, and also to those people who are already into this profession but are facing a lot of challenges which they're not able to overcome, and they think that they're failing in this profession. It's just a method to ease their entire hard work and the sales process, and to make it a completely sport to enjoy and to really live by that. So I hope I'll be getting the same amount of feedback and the same suggestions, and I'll be having equal number of interactions which I had in the last two podcasts. And I did like to thank all of you again for your valuable comments and feedback over them. So, unlike the last two podcasts where I have focused on two aspects at a given time, this time I will focus on one certain aspect which I think is very much common in the entire sales process and also for the sales people, which I have found through interactions and through overhearing a lot of times, which is at times I feel a very bad habit of mine, but it's completely done for learning process. Anyways, the aspects that I'll be covering today, or I will be covering the aspect today, which is the excuses in sales. And I feel the excuses in sales are very much similar to excuses in lives. Before we start talking about this and discussing about this, let's understand the major difference between excuses and problems. An excuse is something where you have frozen the negative factor and you are living by that, not trying to break the ice. And you have tried to convince yourself that the ice which has frozen that negativity cannot be broken to change it to a positive matter. On the other hand, problem is something which always comes with a solution. You try to find out a solution, and as I mentioned in my first podcast, the way of living is nothing but to find four solutions against a problem instead of crying over that problem and thinking it to be a fight with you and your problems. It's not a fight between you and your problems, it's a fight between your solution and your problems, and you need to ensure that your solution wins the game and they dominate your problems. Each and every phase of your life, this should be the ideal scenario. Let's talk about this in details. The most common excuses I find in sales is cold call doesn't work. You need to drop an email. If I get the response of the customer, we'll plan our activities accordingly, this and that. The second is the market in which I'm focusing is completely, diminished. It's completely exhausted. The accounts I have got has nothing left in this anymore. And this thing we decide at the very first trial to interaction itself, which I believe should be molded into a different manner. And the third excuse which I find is blaming the management for everything. Okay, let's address each and every problem one by one, and I'll try to relate all the problems with the excuses that excuses for that matter, that we give in lives. The first problem that we face, the cold call is dead. It doesn't work anymore. The only way is drop an email. If you get a response, we'll plan our activity. If we don't get the response, we'll not call. We try to avoid cold calling. But the true fact is, cold calling is and will never be dead. Now, if I talk about cold calling, it doesn't mean the first mode of interaction with the client should be over a call. That's not exactly what the cold call means. A cold call means at any given point of time, if we are calling the customer, that first call to the client or the customer or the prospect is defined as cold call. So first of all, we need to understand the definition of cold call before we start judging if cold call will be completely abolished from the sales process of the market. Okay, There are two types of brandings which normally we follow in the sales and marketing. One is the paid promotions and paid brandings, and the other is the unpaid brandings. For the paid brandings, we have the digital team in place, which I think most of the companies have. They have a digital person, they work on the social media platforms, they work on the professional networks, and they try to do different kind of promotions, the push promotions through paying a premium amount, and a lot of other things. The other is the unpaid brandings. This is something which can be done by the salesperson also. How much time does it take, or how much difficult it is to post something on your LinkedIn page? How much time does it take to post something on the Twitter page tagging your company? And how much time does it take to write a small blog on some topic or sharing infographics over the social media platforms where your target audience are having an account in? It doesn't take much time, and it's not about the time, it's also about your learning. To write a blog, to create an infographics, you need to read, you need to study, you need to carry out primary, secondary researches to work on that. And this is a part of your learning which will help you in sales, not only in sales but also in your growth in no matter whichever industry or whichever department you decide to work in. Research and study has never proven to be wrong when it comes to growth, provided the sources should be right. So, if we think that cold calling is not working, it's because we have a wrong definition of cold call, which I think I've explained. And secondly, if you really think it's so, work on the branding by yourselves. I think most of the salesperson have a LinkedIn account, they have a Twitter account. If not, create it. And then work on that. Work on those platforms where you think your target audience is really located. It doesn't harm anything to carry out a research in that. But there is no excuse. There's no excuse in this fact, in this matter. You need to work hard. You need to do something which will increase the traffic of your prospect in your social media profile, or might be your company homepage or the website or whatever. The traffic in social media platforms and the websites are not completely dependent on the management and the digital media person. It also depends on the salesperson as well. And how does we work on that? As I mentioned, the non-paid promotions and the brandings. There's no harm in that. I know sales is a difficult job. It takes time. You don't get time for a lot of other things when you are into sales. But if I have to talk about that, even Mark Zuckerberg had 24 hours a day. So does we. Then where are we lacking? Laziness? We have to get out of it. So we need to work on this particularly. The second thing, the second excuse which I find is you feel that the market has been diminished. The market that you are focusing into, the customers in the market already has a partner and they are working with them. You might think that they have a partner, which is completely fine. I understand, it's acceptable. How do you know that the customer delight is met by those partners? You know the customer has a partner and the work is being done. But how do you know that the customers are getting the delightness that they deserve and that they're looking forward to? This can be done only through interaction when you make a call to the customer after your branding and everything is done. So by the time your branding is over, things are over, you call up the customer has your company name somewhere in his mind or somewhere in the files in his email or mailbox or anything. And then you start interacting with the customer, trying to understand their problems and what kind of problems they are facing. And if your company has that much of credibilities to solve the problem which your current prospect is facing with their particular partners. There is a difference between customer satisfaction and customer delight. Customer delight is something which you give to the customer as an add-on to increase their loyalty towards you. A customer satisfaction is a one-time job. They pay you, you do the work, that's it. And if you don't do it properly, they might even spam you. That's different. Let's work on customer delight. You never know the partners that they're working with are into customer satisfaction or customer delight. And if they're into customer delight, how much deeply are they into customer delight? That's what we need to interact with the customer and understand. And talking about if the market diminishes, you might have say 500 accounts in that particular market and the market doesn't respond positively. It's okay. The problem is we see sales in a short term basis, which is important too since we have our targets and criteria to be met. But if you start taking sales as a sport, you'll never find sales to be a short term process. It's really a long term process. You have captured the entire market, you have worked on all the 500 accounts, you have reached the customers, you have done enough of branding to increase the traffic of your company website into the market and a lot of other things. But you might not get an immediate or sudden response, but you never know in the long run, might be 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the lane, the customer might come back to you from that particular market that, hey, I have a really good project and I think we can do something there. And you never know, that account might get closed as well, and that could be your first entry to that particular market. There is something major that we tend to miss. And I think those things should be very important and it should be understood from the very root of it. So let's not think sales to be a short-term process. We have our targets, we'll work harder. But if we start taking sales as a sport, we'll meet our targets and we can also have the long-term plannings and we can also penetrate a certain market which seemed to be impossible at some point of time. That's very important. The third excuse which I find is blaming the management. The fire should be within yourself. If you feel that the management is not helping you and they are not giving you time, so you are not able to do something, it's your failure, not the management's failure. They have hired you. Not because they'll order you. They have hired you for exchange of ideas and understanding how markets work. If you think your manager is not able to help you out or give you enough time or ample suggestion and guidance, we live in a digital market and we have access to internet everywhere. You just need to come back home, spend half an hour on a daily basis, log into YouTube, watch the sales videos, or take tutorials from really good and dynamic salesperson, and you will be able to know how the entire sales process works and how will you be able to combat the challenges. So this is very important. The learning attitude should be in yourself. You don't blame the management if they are not helping you out in certain factors. There might be certain factors where your work might get obstructed because the management is not helping you out, which is a completely different factor and it will be a problem if it pertains. But if you think that the management is not teaching you, there is something called self-learning. There is something called self-will to learn. If you have a will, you will find out a way. If you don't have a will, if you have a will, you'll find problems. If you don't have a will, you will find excuses. So let's take it as a sport. The point is, in life, we keep on complaining. I have lost my mom and dad in a plane accident or a flight crash, or my great grandfather was an alcoholic, and the same genes is being carried out. I get anxieties, I tend to have a lot of tensions in life and I try to get rid out of it. I'm not able to do this, that, or you have lost your limbs or any part of your body in an accident, this, that. But the real problem is the world doesn't care about your problems. And this is something that is told by the CEO of Vayner Media, whose name is Gary Vaynerchuk. I think people who are into sales should follow him. He speaks real good stuff. I really adore him. I really adore his principles, his theories, his ideological adaptations. It's really interesting. And he has clearly mentioned this. No one cares. The world doesn't, and the world and the market doesn't care about your problems. So why should you? Get up and run and start working. If you start giving excuses in life at the age of 24, You will feel old at 40. At the age of 40, you will feel 60 to be very old. But this should not be the case. You should always be energetic. For people who hit the gym, most of the people are lazy and lethargic. They go to the gym for 2 weeks or 1 month and then they feel lazy to go. Their body starts paining and they doesn't want to wake up in the morning and they try to avoid it. Whereas there are people who have got really good physique, and the reason is they take gym as a sport. Now if they don't go to the gym, they are not happy. Honestly speaking, I do not have a television in my home. I do not have it. It's not that I can't afford it, but I hate televisions. I think it's a complete distraction and I don't like televisions at all. I don't have a television for the past 3-4 years and I'm absolutely happy about that. But if there is a news in the world today, or if there is any phenomenon that's happening, I know 90% of them. Why? I have got a smartphone. I can download 10 news apps and I can have access to all the news and all the phenomena happening all across the globe. Do I give an excuse? I do not have a TV, so I don't know the news. I do not have a TV, so I don't know about the market. I do not have a television, so I don't know what's happening in the United States and China and in Russia. No. I could have given the excuse, but not having a TV is my choice and it's a problem, and I've taken out a solution. I have a smartphone. The easiest solution right in front of me. So let's not make excuses. Again, excuses are just a farce. It's all about problems to which a solution can always be found. So for all the people who are trying to pursue sales and marketing as their career options, and all the people who are having negative vibes about sales and marketing, wake up, slap yourself and start running. Life is much better, much fitter and much easier if you wake yourself up. Wake up and start selling and marketing. That's the easiest funda to come out of it. Rest, trust me, it's the most interesting profession as per me, and the most challenging profession, and something where you have ample of learning throughout your life. Thank you. I would like you to watch this video and share it as much as possible, and I'll be waiting for your feedback and your observations and suggestions. Till then, thank you so much. Signing off.